Now, when you come to comparing faces, as I said earlier, some are much more attractive, some are much less attractive. And this is a face I think most of you would think was not very attractive. I treated her with orthotropics and she finished like that, and clearly much better. But I was interested in finding out what features were most important. Is it the change in her cheek, the change in her chin, the change in her nose, or is it the change in her cheeks? Well, I did very simple research. I simply traced out her face before and after, just changing one of those features with each tracing. I then asked a large group of the population, a group of 106 lay people, which face they thought most attractive. Well, nearly all of them chose B. But the interesting factor was that face E was by far the less popular. That was the relative popularity of the different faces, showing that nobody likes flat cheeks, and anybody with flat cheeks is considered unattractive. And that is why I'm sure both I and all of you believe that taking the maxilla forward is the most crucial part of orthotropics. And sadly, conventional orthodontics almost always takes it back. And that, I'm afraid, is true. I've done lots of research on that too. I asked them all to give a second judgment, and you can see again the flat faces were by far less popular. Now, you might ask almost humorously, might good cheekbones make you a princess? Well, I don't know about that, but it certainly can do, and we've got an example there. So cheekbones do clearly make a big difference to the attractiveness of any face. Now, I said earlier on that of the whole body, the face is more likely to change environmentally than any other part. That was the research of Horowitz with his twins. This is separate research by Cole, and he showed very similar. The green area is affected by the environment. The red area is much more controlled by the genes. So just remember that. It's more convincing evidence, I think. Now, I created this face, or should I say, an artist did under my instructions, and I wanted to show what a Mesolithic woman would actually have looked like with full cheekbones, because she would have had normal posture and eaten a rough, tough diet and lived out of doors, all three important factors for good development. But I don't say it's perfect, but I do consider it more or less ideal. Dolly Alderton, one of the reporters on the Sunday Times, I think she has a lovely shaped face. You all have your own favorites, but basically all of them will have good cheekbones. Now, I've done quite a bit of research on anthropology, and the Goth, this skull on the left was found in Goth's Cage in Somerset, Britain. And I did an analysis of that and created my own Paleolithic profile. Now, you can see that I've drawn in Steiner's analysis, if you look there, and you can see that is a long, long way back, about 20 millimeters back from where I think the face should be. Steiner thought that the SNA should be about 81 or 2, whereas I think it should be about 100. That is a huge difference, and really explains the difference between orthodontics and orthotropics. But now a face should grow forward like this. But sadly, most of them grow vertically like this. I'll show that to you again because it is the maxilla forms and drops almost vertically down in a very high proportion of patients. That swings the mandible back. Now, at that point, you can see it tends to squash the airway, which is, we all know, a problem. But now look at what happens next, because it shows that the control of the shape of the mandible is entirely by the cells themselves in the periodontal membrane. Not periodontal, periosteal membrane. Look at this. That is the change that takes place. I'll do it again. Now, that takes place automatically with every child if they drop their jaw down. Remember that, because it shortens the length of the mandible by many millimeters and is a prime cause of malocclusion. Look at this face here. It's growing like that. As a result, they can't breathe, so they tilt their head back and lean their head forward. I'll repeat that for you. It all happens rather quickly, but that is basically what happens when anyone gets a malocclusion. And it's basically, as I said, this is a girl, age 10, that is the black outline there. She started leaving her mouth open, although she kept it closed up until 10 years old. But between and 14, the mandible changed from the black outline to the red outline. Look at that change in the actual shape of a solid bone, which presumably was genetically controlled originally, but showing how open the mandible is to environmental influence. She left her mouth open, and the lower jaw actually shortened by 1/3 over a period of maximum growth. I think that that is absolutely phenomenal, and once again tells us what causes malocclusion. It's very simple: bad posture.